welcome to Springfield Career Insights. Tonight, we confront a reality affecting families across the country: the rise of substance abuse and the silent power of peer pressure among young people. Many young people are not experimenting out of curiosity, they are escaping stress, numbing pain, trying to fit in, or simply following the crowd because they fear being left out. Behind every addiction is a story. Behind every risky choice is a pressure. Behind every young person struggling is a family that often does not know what to do. So we ask, why are so many young people turning to substances? And how can families, communities, and young people themselves break this cycle before it destroys potential? And how do we build the courage to say no in a world where the crowd is often louder than conscience? To guide us through this urgent conversation, we are joined by His Excellency Dr. Godfrey Gandawa, President of Springfield Research University, Architect of Education 6.0, and a continental voice on youth behavior, resilience, and social identity. President, welcome.
Thank you, Doctor. At Springfield, we teach that substance abuse is not a moral failure. It is a collision between pressure, pain, and vulnerability. Peer pressure becomes powerful when a young person has not yet discovered their own identity. When we strengthen identity, build support systems, and teach young people to honor their future more than their moment, we break the chains and destroy the potential.
Thank you, Professor. President, substance abuse is destroying many young lives quietly and quickly. Why has this issue become so widespread among today's youth?
Thank you, Doctor. So substance abuse has spread among young people because the world around them has changed faster than our systems. Our families and our communities have been able to adapt. This generation is growing up in a storm of pressure, loneliness, overstimulation, and silence. So many young people are overwhelmed long before they are understood. They are connected to everyone and yet deeply isolated. They are exposed to adult realities before they have the emotional tools to handle them. They are carrying pain they cannot name. And in that confusion, substances become what? A doorway. Not because they want to destroy themselves, but because they want to feel something different from what they feel now. And we must be honest. The support structures that once held young people together, that's family, community, mentorship, belonging, have weakened. Where guidance is absent, temptation becomes louder. Where connection is missing, escape becomes attractive. Where a child feels unseen, anything that numbs the egg becomes what? A friend. This is not this crisis rather is not about bad children. It is about a society that has not kept pace with the emotional needs of the youth. It is about homes stretched thin, communities that no longer speak, and a world that demands more from young minds than they are ready to give. Substance abuse is not the root. It is the smoke. The fire is deeper: disconnection, pressure, loneliness, and unaddressed pain. If we want to save our youth, we must rebuild the spaces where they feel held, heard, and guided. We must give them something stronger than the substances calling their names, a sense of belonging, identity, and hope. That is how we turn the tide, Doctor.
Thank you, Professor. Many young people say they turn to substances because they feel overwhelmed or hopeless. What deeper issues are driving this behavior?
Thank you, Doctor. So, when young people say they turn to substances because they feel overwhelmed or hopeless, they are not talking about the substance. They are talking about the pain beneath it. The drug is not the story. The drug is the escape from the story. So what drives this behavior runs far deeper than curiosity or peer pressure, Doctor. Many young people today are carrying emotional weight with no emotional language. They feel sadness but don't know it's sadness. They feel anxiety but call it pressure. They feel loneliness but pretend they are fine. When you cannot name your pain, you cannot manage it, you see. You can only run from it. There is also a profound sense of invisibility. So a young person who feels unseen at home, unheard at school, and misunderstood by society begins to believe their emotions have no place to land. So substances become the place. And then there is the quiet war inside. That's the war of comparison, identity confusion, academic expectations, or the constant performance demanded by social media. So this generation is living in a spotlight that never switches off. The pressure to appear perfect while feeling broken is unbearable. You see? Many are also battling internal storms they inherited. Trauma in the home, conflict between parents, financial instability, and emotional distance. When the home is tense, the child seeks peace elsewhere. When the home is silent, the child seeks comfort elsewhere. When the home is unpredictable, the child seeks control elsewhere. And perhaps the deepest wound is hopelessness. The belief that tomorrow will not be better than today. When a young person loses hope, they stop protecting their future. Substances become a way to stop feeling the weight of a future they no longer believe in. So when a young person reaches for a substance, it is not because they are weak. It is because they are hurting. It is because they are overwhelmed. It is because they are trying to survive emotions they were never taught to navigate. If we want to help them, we must stop asking, why are you using? And start asking, what pain are you trying to escape? Because the substance is not the enemy. The unspoken pain is.
Thank you, Professor. You often speak about emotional escape. How does emotional pain make young people vulnerable to drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. So emotional pain makes young people vulnerable to drugs and alcohol because pain always looks for a doorway. And if a healthy doorway is missing, a destructive one becomes tempting. When a young person is hurting, they are not searching for pleasure. They are searching for relief. Relief from pressure, relief from loneliness, relief from fear, confusion, or the feeling of not being enough. So, substances offer that relief quickly, quietly, and without judgment. They don't ask questions, they don't demand explanations, they simply numb. And for a young person drowning in emotion, numbness feels like safety. But here is the deeper truth, doctor. Emotional pain distorts perception. A young person in pain stops seeing consequences clearly. They stop valuing their future. They stop believing they matter. In that state, the brain becomes desperate for anything that softens the ache, even if it destroys them in the long run. Then, emotional pain creates a hunger for escape. Not escape from life, escape from the version of life they are experiencing. So escape from the noise in their mind. Escape from the pressure on their chest. Escape from the silence in their home. Escape from the expectations they cannot meet. Then, emotional pain weakens self-protection. When a young person feels hopeless, they stop guarding themselves. They stop fighting for their well-being. They stop imagining a future worth protecting. In that moment, substances slip in as a counterfeit comfort. Now, to emotional pain, which isolates. And isolation is the most dangerous place for a young mind. When a young person feels alone with their emotions, his substances now become a companion, but a terrible one. But a companion nonetheless. So when we talk about emotional escape, doctor, we are not talking about rebellion. We are talking about survival. A young person uses substances not because they want to ruin their life, but because they are trying to silence a pain they don't know how to carry. If we want to protect them, we must give them something stronger than the escape. That's a place to talk, a place to feel, a place to be held, a place to be understood. Because when emotional pain is acknowledged, the need for escape begins to fade.
Thank you, Professor. President, peer pressure is powerful, especially for teenagers and young adults. Why do young people struggle to say no?
Thank you, doctor. So young people don't struggle to say no because they are weak. They struggle because the world they are growing up in makes no feel dangerous, lonely, or costly. Peer pressure is not about the substance. It is about belonging. So a teenager would rather fit in and be wrong than stand alone and be right. That is the emotional equation driving most of their decisions. So here is the deeper truth, doctor. Young people feel exclusion more than they feel consequences. At that age, acceptance is oxygen. They want to feel accepted. Rejection feels like suffocation. So when a friend says, try this, the real message is, stay with us. Don't be different. Don't be alone. You get it? And the young person chooses belonging over safety. So identity is still forming, you see. So teenagers are not fully anchored in who they are. They are still asking, who am I? Where do I fit? Who accepts me? When identity is shaky, influence becomes what? Becomes powerful. And then the adolescent brain is wired for risk, you see. Not because they are reckless, but because the part of the brain that calculates long-term consequences is still developing. So the part that seeks excitement, approval, and novelty is fully active. This imbalance now makes no feel like missing out. You see? And then many young people lack emotional tools. Saying no requires confidence, doctor. Boundaries, self-worth, skills many have never been taught. If a child is grown up being silenced, criticized, or compared, they feel or they will struggle to accept themselves in a group. Then there is peer groups that often replace family. When the home is tense, distant, or emotionally unavailable, friends become the primary source of validation. And when validation comes from peers, their influence becomes obsolete. And finally, doctor, young people want to avoid embarrassment. So the fear of being mocked, labeled, or isolated is stronger than the fear of the substance itself. So humiliation is a powerful weapon at that age. So when a young person says yes, it is really about desire. It is about survival, social survival. So if we want them to say no, we must give them something stronger than peer approval. You see? A sense of identity, emotional grounding, supportive homes, and communities where they feel seen, valued, and anchored. A confident child is harder to influence. A connected child is harder to recruit. And a supported child is harder to destroy.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to our gospel song, Heavens Open Wide.
Running dry, but I felt the shift of glory, like the breaking of the sky. Every burden started lifting, every shadow lost its fight. When your presence touched the earth and heaven opened wide. When heaven opens wide, your glory fills the room. Let your fire be our guide. Kosi, vula izulu phezu kwami. Lord, open heaven over me.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. How can a young person recognize when fun has crossed into danger?
Thank you, Doctor, for this pertinent question. So a young person rarely realizes the moment when fun quietly shifts into danger, because the slide is subtle, you see, emotional, and often disguised as excitement, belonging, and relief. They are in for it. But they are signs, you see, and when they appear, the young person must treat them as alarms, not background noise. So the first sign is when the fun stops feeling free. If you need the substance to relax, to socialize, to sleep, to cope, to feel normal, the line has already been crossed. Funny is optional, you see. Dependence is not. So another sign is when the consequences start whispering. You wake up with regret. You hide things from your parents. Your schoolwork slips. Your mood changes. Your friendships shifts. Danger really arrives with a siren doctor. Doesn't ring bells. It arrives with small cracks. Danger also appears when your behavior changes to protect the habit. You lie, you sneak, you avoid certain people, you choose friends based on access, not connection. When you start rearranging your life, doctor, around the substance is no longer entertainment. It is now control. So, a deeper sign is when the substance becomes the escape instead of the celebration. If you reach for it when you are sad, stressed, lonely, or overwhelmed, you are not having fun. You are medicating pain. And pain, medicated, is pain multiplied. And perhaps the clearest sign is this: when you feel yourself disappearing, your confidence fades, your spark dims, your goals blur, your sense of self becomes foggy. Anything that makes you lose yourself is not fun, doctor. It is danger wearing a smile. Young people must understand, fun is supposed to lift you. Danger drains you. Funny ends with laughter. Danger ends with silence. Funny makes you more yourself. Danger makes you less. When the experience stops adding to your life, doctor, and starts taking from it, even quietly, the line has been crossed. And recognizing that moment is not weakness, it is wisdom, it is survival. It is the beginning of reclaiming your life, doctor.
Thank you, Professor. Many young people believe they can control it or stop anytime. Why is this mindset so dangerous?
Thank you, doctor. So the belief that I can control it or I can stop anytime is one of the most dangerous illusions in the world of substance use, because it gives false confidence to a mind that is already being rewired. You see, young people cling to this mindset because it protects their pride. It allows them to feel in charge, while something else is what is quietly taking charge of them. So the danger lies in three truths, doctor. First is, substances change the brain long before the user realizes it. What begins as choice, they think they are choosing to take substances. So it begins as choice and slowly becomes what? It becomes chemistry. By the time a young person feels the shift, the substance has already negotiated its place in their system. Then second, control is always strongest at the beginning and weakest when you need it most. Everyone believes they are the exception, you see. Everyone thinks they are smarter than the substance. But no one sees the moment when the line is crossed, because the crossing is silent. And third, the belief in control delays the help, because they think they are in charge, so they don't see danger. So they delay seeking help. So a young person who thinks they can stop it will not seek support. For what? They will not listen to warnings. They will not admit the struggle. And by the time they do, the grip is tighter. And this mindset is dangerous, doctor, because it blinds them to the truth. You cannot outsmart something that is designed to hijack your impulse, your emotions, and your judgment. The tragedy is that the young person thinks they are in the driver's seat, when in reality, the substance has already taken the wheel.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to our gospel song, I'm Walking Out of the Fire.
Hey, I'm walking out. Oh, I'm walking out of the fire. Hey, yeah. I've been standing in the furnace where the heat exposed my fear. I've been fighting through the shadows, wondering if you still were near. But in the middle of the burning, I felt a fourth man by my side. And what was meant to leave me broken became the place you purify. I'm walking out of the fire, not smelling like the flames. I'm walking out with freedom, with a testimony in my veins. Oh, it tried to take me under, couldn't touch what you refined. I'm walking out of the fire, stronger than the first time. Hey, every lie that tried to bind me, every fear that held me down, lost its power in your presence when your glory came around. Oh, you turn ashes into beauty. You turn pressure into praise. Now I'm stepping from the furnace with a heart You pull my lady in a man. I'm walking out of fire. Hey, I'm walking out of first time. I'm walking out.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. President, what role does identity confusion play in making young people vulnerable to peer pressure?
Thank you, Doctor. So, identity confusion is one of the most powerful forces, behind peer pressure. Because a young person who is unsure of who they are will borrow identity from the people around them. When a young person doesn't yet know themselves, they become vulnerable to anyone who seems confident, loud, or certain. They follow the group not because they want the substance, but because they want a sense of self. So here is the heart of it, Doctor. A young person who is still asking, who am I, will accept almost any answer that makes them feel included. You see, belonging becomes identity, approval becomes identity, the group becomes identity. And when identity is outsourced, influence becomes obsolete. Identity confusion also creates emotional hunger, the hunger to fit in, to be seen, to be valued. So peer pressure feeds that hunger by offering instant belonging. So the young person says yes, not to the substance, but to the feeling of being accepted. This is our group. This is our gang, So the danger is simple, Doctor. When you don't know who you are, you let others decide for you. A grounded young person can say no. A confused young person fears that no will cost them their place in the group. So this is why identity work, self-worth, confidence, emotional grounding is not a luxury. It is protection. It is armor. It is the difference between standing firm and being swept away.
Thank you, Professor. How can young people build the courage to walk away from friends who are leading them into destructive behavior?
Thank you, Doctor. That's a critical question. So, walking away from destructive friends is one of the hardest things a young person will ever do. Not because they love the danger, but because they fear the loneliness that comes after the goodbye. Courage in this moment is not strength. It is about clarity, Doctor. A young person finds that courage the moment they realize one truth. Any friendship that demands your destruction is not friendship. It is captivity. Courage begins with self-respect. When a young person starts valuing their future, their peace, their dreams, the grip of the group begins to loosen. You cannot protect your destiny while protecting people who are harming it. So, courage grows through honest reflection. You ask, how do I feel after being with them? Do they lift me or drain me? Do I recognize myself around them? When the answer is yes, the path becomes clear. So, courage strengthens with quiet preparation, Doctor. You don't need a dramatic exit. You simply step back, you reduce the time, you change the environment, you choose different spaces. Distance is a decision, not a fight. And courage becomes unshakable, doctor, when a young person finds new circles that affirm their growth. You cannot walk away from darkness without walking towards light. Healthy friendships make living toxic ones easier. The truth is simple, doctor. A young person does not walk away because they stop caring about their friends. They walk away because they start caring about themselves. That is not betrayal. That is survival. That is maturity, doctor. That is the beginning of becoming who they were meant to be.
Thank you, Professor. President, how can communities, schools, churches, neighborhoods play a stronger role in prevention?
Thank you, doctor. So schools, churches, even neighborhoods can prevent substance abuse by doing one thing above all: making young people feel seen. So a child who feels seen is harder to recruit. A child who feels supported is harder to break. So prevention begins with presence. I always talk about presence. When teachers, pastors, coaches, and neighbors take time to know a young person's name, their story, their struggles, the child gains anchors that pull them away from danger. It grows through consistent messaging. So when every space a young person enters, school, church, community, speaks the same language of guidance, dignity, and responsibility, the noise of peer pressure becomes weaker. Then it strengthens through safe spaces, places where young people can talk without fear, ask without shame, and seek help without judgment. So a community that listens becomes a community that protects, doctor. And it becomes unshakable through role modeling. Young people imitate what they see. When adults live with integrity, discipline, and emotional steadiness, they create a blueprint that outshines the temptations around them. So communities prevent substance abuse not by policing youth, but by surrounding them with belonging, mentorship, and hope. A supported child is a safer child, doctor.
Wow, this is amazing. Let's take a commercial break and stay tuned.
At Springfield Research University, we don't teach to pass exams, we encode futures. Grounded in Education 6.0 and powered by STEMMA, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, and automation, we deliver modular, sovereign learning across undergraduate, master's, and doctoral programs. Explore our prospectus, where every curriculum is designed to STEMatize every discipline, dignify local authorship, and credential transformative knowledge. Be STEMatized, be sovereign. Here, knowledge is authored, not borrowed. Curriculum is credentialed, not copied. Every graduate becomes an architect of transformation. With 2 annual intakes, March and September, the path to innovation is always open. From the logic of automation to the soul of indigenous intelligence, SRU is where tomorrow is designed. Springfield isn't just a university, it's an epicenter of epistemic dignity. Join the movement. Study where learning governs itself. Springfield Research University, the globe is here. Where are you?
Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion. President, what is the difference between experimentation and addiction, and how can young people recognize the link?
Thank you, doctor. So the line between experimentation and addiction is thin, very thin, quiet, and often invisible until it is crossed. And that is what makes it dangerous. Experimentation is a moment. So a choice driven by curiosity, impulse, or social pressure. It is occasional, external, and not tied to emotion. Addiction now is a pattern, a shift in the mind and behavior where the substance now becomes a need, not an experience. So a young person can recognize the line through the changes happening inside them. So the line is crossed when the substance becomes emotional, when you use it to cope, to escape, to calm down, to feel normal. It is no longer experimentation. The line is crossed when secrecy begins. Hiding, lying, avoiding questions is the first sign that control is slipping. The line is crossed when the substance starts shaping your routine. Your sleep changes, your mood changes, your priorities shift, your schoolwork, your relationships, and the energy begins to decline. The line is crossed, doctor, when you feel uneasy without it. If you become irritable, restless, or anxious when you don't have it, dependence has already begun. Experimentation is something you choose. Addiction is something that begins choosing you. So, recognizing the shift early is not fear, doctor. It is wisdom, protection, and the beginning of reclaiming your future.
Thank you, Professor. How can young people support friends who are struggling with substance abuse without being pulled into the same behavior?
So, thank you, doctor. So, supporting a friend who is struggling with substance abuse is an act of loyalty, but it must never become an act of self-destruction. So, a young person can help, but they must help from solid ground, not from inside the same fire. The first principle is support without participation. You can listen, you can encourage, you can walk with them to get help, but you cannot join them in the behavior they are trying to escape. Compassion does not require imitation. And the second principle is boundaries, doctor. A boundary is not rejection, it is protection. Tell your friend, I care about you, but I cannot be part of anything that harms us. If the friendship collapses because of that, it was already broken. The third principle is redirecting, not rescuing. You are not their therapist. You are not their savior. Your role is to guide them towards adults, counselors, mentors, or professionals who can intervene. You support them by connecting them to real help. And the fourth principle is choosing safe environments. Meet in places where substances are not present. Invite them into healthier circles. Sometimes the environment is the trigger, you see. Change the environment and you weaken the pull. And finally, the most important principle, do not lose yourself while trying to save someone else. If helping them begins to harm you, step back. If you cannot pull someone out of a river, if you are drowning beside them, true friendship is not about sinking together, doctor. It is about refusing to let each other go under.
Thank you, Professor. President, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to stop but feels trapped?
So thank you, doctor. So a young person who wants to stop but feels trapped is not weak. They are overwhelmed. And the first thing they must hear is this: Feeling trapped is the sign that your strength is waking up, not shutting down. The path out begins with 3 truths, doctor. The first, you are not alone. Addiction isolates you so it can control you. The moment you speak to someone, a parent, a mentor, a counselor, a teacher, the trap begins to break. Silence is the cage. Honesty is the key. And second, stopping is not an event. It is like a process. You don't need to be perfect tomorrow. You just need to take the next step today. Small steps count. Small victories matter. Recovery is built one decision at a time, doctor. And third, you must change your environment. You cannot heal in the same space that is hurting you. Distance from the people, places, and routines that feed the habit is not abandonment. It is survival. So your future is worth more than their approval. And here is the most important truth. You are stronger than the substance. If you were not, you would not feel the desire to stop, you see. So the fact that you want freedom means freedom is still possible. So you ask for help, create distance, choose yourself. You are not trapped. You are standing at the beginning of your comeback.
Thank you, Professor. President, what role does discipline play in protecting young people from destructive habits?
Thank you, Doctor. So discipline is not a restriction. It is protection. So a young person, and discipline is the internal guardrail that keeps them from drifting into habits that quietly destroy potential. So discipline protects by creating structure. A young person with routines, goals, and boundaries has less room for chaos, doctor. Substance abuse thrives in unstructured spaces. Discipline closes those gaps. Discipline protects by strengthening decision making. So it teaches a young person to pause before acting, to think before following, to choose long-term gain over short-term excitement. That pause is often the difference between safety and regret. Then discipline protects by building self-respect. When a young person values their body, their mind, and their future, destructive habits lose their appeal. Self-respect is the strongest antidote to peer pressure. Then, discipline protects by creating identity. A disciplined young person knows who they are and what they stand for. And when identity is strong, influence is weak. In the end, discipline is not about saying no to pleasure. It is about saying yes to your future, doctor. It is the quiet force that keeps a young person aligned with their purpose, even when the world pulls the opposite direction.
Thank you, Professor. President, what message would you give to a young person who feels like they have already ruined their life?
Thank you, doctor. This is a pertinent question. So, when a young person who feels they have already ruined their life is standing at a crossroads, you see, not at a dead end. And the first message they must hear is this: you are not broken beyond repair. You are overwhelmed, and overwhelmed can be healed. So every life has a chapter that feels like failure. Every adult who looks composed today has a moment they thought they would never recover from. You are not an exception. You are simply in your difficult chapter. The second message, doctor, is this: mistakes do not erase destiny. A wrong turn does not cancel the road ahead. Your future is not determined by the worst thing you have done, but by the next decision you make. And the third message, Doctor, is shame is lying to you. Shame tells you the story is over. Growth tells you the story is beginning. You are allowed to rise. You are allowed to rebuild. You are allowed to start again. And the final message, Doctor, you do not have to climb out alone. So talk to someone you trust. Let others walk with you. Strength is not pretending. Strength is reaching. You have not ruined your life. You have reached the moment where your comeback begins. So your story is still open. Your future is intact, and you are still becoming.
Thank you, Professor. Finally, what is your message to every young person fighting silent battles with peer pressure and substances?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. So, to every young person fighting silent battles with peer pressure and substances, hear this with your whole heart. You are not weak, you are human. And the fact that you are fighting means you have not surrendered. Peer pressure is loud, temptation is loud, but your future is louder. If you give it a chance to speak, you do not need to impress anyone to belong. The real friends do not demand your destruction as proof of loyalty. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your life. You are stronger than the moment you are in, stronger than the substance, stronger than the pressure, stronger than the voice telling you just this once. And if you are struggling, if you feel trapped, if you feel ashamed, you are not alone. There are people who stand with you, guide you, and they help you breathe again. Reach out. Speak up. Silence is where the battle grows, and honesty is where the battle breaks. Your story is not defined by what you tried, what you did, or where you stumbled. Your story is defined by what you choose next. Choose life. Choose your future. Choose the version of yourself you will be proud to meet one day. You are still becoming, and your becoming is far from over. Thank you, Doctor, for having me.
Thank you, President, for confronting the dangers that threaten the future of our youth. Your message tonight reminds us that substance abuse is not a moral failure. It is a societal challenge that requires courage, awareness, and support. To our audience, if you are ready to protect your future from destructive influences and build a life anchored in strength, Springfield Research University invites you to join a community where resilience is taught and lived. Visit www.springfieldresearchuniversity.net to begin. This brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Springfield Area Insights. May your choices protect your health, dignity, and destiny. I am Clarence, your host. Good night.
Siyakhuphuka tikitile futhanza lungakiwa hey 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 siyakhuphuka sonke siyavumelana ngemjululo muhle sonke similela